Hi everyone, welcome back. How are you all? This is going to be part 2 of the Q&A series that I'm doing. So this is part 2, there will be a part 3 as well. So it's not just one crazy long video. I've just finished filming the head wrap tutorial. Thanks for all your lovely comments on the last video. So I filmed making 2 of them. This one is a chiffon one which I've edged and sewn on the overlocker, and then I've done another rayon one which I've sewn on the machine. So I've got 2 different techniques that you can use to make them, and that video will be up tomorrow. Now I haven't got my glasses on today because the light was reflecting in them so much in the last video, so I'm going to have to squint at the questions. And I got someone's name wrong last time. Danielle, I'm really sorry. I completely misread your name as Daniel. Huge apologies for that. I feel terrible. And apologies if I get something wrong again today because I don't have my glasses on. There was no excuse. I had glasses on last time. There was no excuse. Alright, so I've got a couple of people who have asked similar questions, so I'll sort of roll them all into one. So we've got Miss Prisk 2410 on Instagram said, how did you learn sewing? Simone G on YouTube says, are you self-taught or did you study pattern drafting and fashion? And then Amicy Pop on YouTube said, did you train in dressmaking or are you self-taught? What made you get into sewing? I'll sort of go back to how I began right through to, now and how I got to where I am now. So I remember first being interested, not so much in sewing, but in fashion and dresses was when I was a kid, and it was all Barbie. Barbies came with the most amazing dresses. My Barbie had some beautiful dresses. I wasn't so much interested in playing with Barbies and making stories. All I wanted to do was dress them up and put them in beautiful clothes. My mum used to make clothes for my Barbies. I remember making little bras from them from this really tiny ribbon and this beautiful lace that was just like the right size for little cups. And I was fascinated not only with the clothes that I bought for my Barbies or had bought for me for my Barbies and what they came with, but also these beautiful things that my mum was making. And my mum used to make a lot of dresses for me and my sister as well. She made us some bridesmaids dresses when we were bridesmaids when we were kids. She often used to make us matching dresses at Christmas, and I was just completely fascinated by seeing how she turned a piece of fabric into something I could wear and seeing how she turned a little piece of lace into a bra for a Barbie. It was just amazing. So I started experimenting with making little clothes for my Barbies, and my mum showed me little bits, and as I got older my mum showed me more and more sewing techniques and helped me with patterns. She'd indulge me and buy me patterns of fabric, and I used her sewing machine. So my mum was my first teacher, and she taught me how to sew basic stuff. A lot of the time she'd leave me to my own devices just to make it up when I started experimenting. So I guess to answer some of the questions is no, I do not have any formal sewing training. It's all been through trial and error and experience. I do have a design degree though. I've got a degree in metalwork and jewellery. I trained as a jeweller and that's what I wanted to do. So I do have official design training in my background. At that point, when I did my degree in the mid-90s, sewing was just a hobby. It was just something I did for myself. It was something I did for my friends, something that I hadn't even considered. I considered it a hobby, something that I did for myself, not a career at that point. So at that point, I was making clothes for myself, making clothes for my friends. I was buying things from charity shops and upcycling and changing things as well. Part of it was because I never wanted to wear what everyone else was wearing. I just wanted to be me, and I had my own ideas of what I wanted to do. Often if I had a design and I couldn't find a pattern, a commercial pattern that was right for what I wanted to do, then I'd find one that was close and I'd alter it. And that's how I learned pattern making, basically, was just buying commercial patterns, learning how they went together, so learning the basics of how princess seams joined and how that, and then once I got that, I could then take these patterns and see the potential in them for what they could be and how I could change them up to be what I wanted them to be. That's also how I made my first corset. So I made my first corset in 1995, and I went and bought a Vogue bodice pattern, that was the closest to a corset looking pattern that I could find. There were no corset patterns in commercial pattern books then that I found. Not where I was anyway, maybe there were in other countries. There was no online learning, there was no YouTube to teach me. So my first corset was, yeah, me taking a Vogue pattern, taking the waist in to make it more corset shaped. I boned it with plastic boning because I had no idea about metal boning or anything like that. I didn't know where to get a busk from, so I'd seen corsets in shops and I couldn't afford to buy one. This is why I thought I'd make one for myself. So I'd seen the busk fronts, I didn't know where to buy them, so I actually used trouser hooks to get that sort of effect of the busk on the front of it. I used just those cheap eyelets from the fabric shop that just split at the back when you squish them, and they all pop straight out. And I made it out of PVC because, you know, start easy. But it came out. I used to wear that out clubbing all the time. I loved that corset. Even though it wasn't a proper corset, it was still a huge accomplishment. And that's what really started my passion for corsetry. I ended up writing my dissertation on corsetry. And it was kind of during my degree and after my degree that I realised that clothes and fashion and sewing really were my passion and not the jewellery anymore. Yeah, when I started, I just wanted to be a jeweller. That was it. So yeah, and then I sewed more and more, probably because I was a poor student. I was sewing more and more stuff for myself. We had a great fabric shop in the market in High Wycombe where I went to university. So I used to go and buy cheap fabric off the market stall to make things. And yeah, it was when I finished that I realised, yeah, I wanted to sew. When I graduated and moved back home, my first job was then in a fabric shop, which just fed that passion even more because I got a really good staff discount, and I used to spend probably most of my wages on fabric and bringing it home. And I just spent all my time sewing. And that's how it began. That's when I started making more things for friends. That's when other people started saying, can you make this for me? I was experimenting more with corsetry as well. And that's when I realised that maybe this is something I can make money from. Maybe this is something I can turn into a business. And this is where my real passion is. Back then I was into the sort of goth and cyber goth and metal scene. So I was making a lot of cyber goth tops, lots of neon and UV reactive stuff, lots of PVC, all sorts of different clothes. And I made a couple of wedding dresses for people at that time. And at that point, that's when I realised that the corsetry and the wedding dresses and special occasion dresses and doing something that took days to make and was really elaborate and one-off was what I really wanted to do. So then in 2002, I think it was, I opened a shop. I just literally went for it and went, right, I'm just going to find a shop to rent. I'm going to open a shop and make wedding dresses for people. And here I am, nearly 20 years later, still doing the same thing. So I started my first business in 98, opened my shop in 2002. I moved to Australia in 2007 and started Rockstars and Royalty here, and I'm still going. So I'm very lucky that I stumbled across something that I was passionate about and I wanted to do probably forever. I can't imagine not sewing anymore. I can't imagine doing anything else. Cool. So that was a long rambling answer, but I hope I answered some of your questions in that. So yeah, how did I learn sewing? Was, yeah, my mum, and then trial and error and experimenting and seeing what happened. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. When you're learning, there's going to be a lot of mistakes. Top tip would be just to always make a toile. I made so many things that I ended up giving away because they didn't fit me, because I'd just go ahead and yeah, just cut out anything and make it, and then I put it on and it'd be too small. I never tried it on. So I wish someone had told me early on that commercial patterns, the sizing on them is completely bonkers and you have to go by your measurements and not the sizing, because again, I'd just buy it and cut out a size 12 and then it wouldn't fit me. Yeah, but things aren't always going to go right. I didn't know what fabrics suited what patterns and garments back then, and I made a lot of awful things, but it's all led me to where I am now, so I wouldn't change any of it. Right, so next, Amacy Pop on YouTube says, which designers are your absolute favourites, alive or dead? Probably my top favourite designers, Alexander McQueen. Alexander McQueen just blew me away. Everything about his work, from the designs to the quality, his tailoring skills just still blow my mind every time I see them, to then how he styled things in his catwalk presentations and his catwalk shows. His live shows were just like nothing I'd ever seen before. I remember I was on my degree, so I was studying jewellery at the time, and he used to have the most incredible jewellery pieces commissioned to style his outfits with for his live shows. And I think from sort of really looking at all the jewellery pieces he did, I started then looking more at the clothes, and I just fell in love, absolutely fell in love. I still love Alexander McQueen, the label now. I think Sarah Burton has kept Alexander McQueen's dream alive. I think she's really kept the essence of the brand there. And I always look forward to seeing new collections and seeing what they've done. But I always go back to the old collections too, and go, if you haven't seen some of his catwalk shows, go back and watch them. There's loads on YouTube if you look up. So many. I can't even pick a favourite because there's so many. Then Vivienne Westwood has been a hero of mine for a long time as a designer and as a person. I love that she's so outspoken on so many things. I love that she came from that punk background and came from making punk clothes to becoming a couture designer, but keeping that punk aesthetic as she went through. So I absolutely adore Vivienne Westwood. I was lucky enough to see her exhibition at the V&A, I can't even remember, it was maybe early 2000s, and seeing her pieces in person were just incredible. So beautiful, absolutely beautiful. My third favourite designer would be Jean-Paul Gaultier, and especially his use of corsets. And he was very much one of the people responsible for bringing corsets back into vogue with the work he did for Madonna. So I was lucky enough to see his exhibition down in Melbourne a few years ago, and I always cried seeing some of these dresses that I've loved for years, some of the corsets that I've loved for years close up, and you could get really close. It was just brilliant. And I think the way he finished his career this year with that sort of retrospective look, and yeah, just amazing, absolutely amazing. I think what I love about all three of these designers as well is that they've all come from hard work and being themselves, and they've started these huge labels, but they've started small and started making beautiful things and grown just on the back of their talent. So I love that. I absolutely love that. There's lots of people doing amazing things in the fashion world though. I love the new direction Gucci took a few years ago. I think they've done, Alessandro Michele has done some phenomenal stuff with Gucci. I love Marchesa. I love the feminine, beautiful dresses that they produce. I was sad when Zac Posen had to close his doors. That was, yeah, really sad, because he's just a master of what he does as well. His dresses were just so beautiful. Again, the construction was just immaculate. I loved his designs. I loved his use of technology in his designs as well. Yeah, I'm going to miss seeing his work. I'm especially going to miss him at the Met Gala. I love some of the dresses that he made for the Met Gala. In fact, I'm just going to miss the Met Gala in general this year, because it's what it should have been. Oh my God, it should have been today. First Monday in May. The Met Gala should be today, and it's not happening, which is really sad. So hopefully it'll be back and even bigger and better next year. All right, Jenna Howell on YouTube says, I can't even read this. All right, Jenna Howell on YouTube says, I'm trying to start making bridal gowns here in Florida professionally. How exciting for you, Jenna. That's awesome. I've been sewing since I was 7 and started making formal gowns when I was in middle school. My problem is in preparing for my first collection of 15 gowns. I can't stop buying fabric and appliques, lol. I don't live near any type of fabric store, so I order everything online. How do you organise your fabric and appliques especially so you don't forget what you have and use it? I have stuff all over my house at the moment trying to get my studio reorganised. Any suggestions? I love your videos and your creativity is amazing. Oh, thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much. I'll take these off again because they're reflecting. How exciting starting a label and making a collection, and what a, yeah, awesome time. So I used to buy anything that I saw and liked and put it in a box until something came up, there was an occasion to use it. I'm trying to be better now and just buy things as I need them, but I still do have a big old stash of fabric and appliques. I use just those plastic tubs, and I've got them stacked in the studio, and I've got different things in different tubs. So I know one box has got all my flowers in, one box has got all my lace fabric in, one box has got all my lace trims in. Then I've got smaller drawers, so I've got some appliques in those. I've got another set of drawers near my sewing machine with all my threads in. And then I've got drawers where I keep things like elastic in one drawer and zips in one drawer, so I know where all those things are. So it looks a little bit like organised chaos in here, but I do know where everything is. I've got drawers on this side of the studio as well with patterns in and with fabric, so I have all my sequin fabric offcuts in one drawer, or my satin offcuts in another drawer. Often they're big enough to make corsets from, so I can find them instead of cutting off the roll. Then I've got a box with rolls of fabric stood in, but I do need to reorganise my studio. I've still got too much stuff. Then I've also got boxes in the garage with fabric in too, and I've got rolls of fabric stood in my garage because I've run out of room in here. But I am trying to be good and not buy so much. So, yeah, drawers and boxes. Right, I'm right on the drawer what's in there maybe, and try. Yeah, what I try and do now is only buy what I need as my clients need it, or buy what I need for a dress after I've designed it. So for the sunset dress that I'm working on at the minute, I designed it and then I went online and found the black floral lace that I needed. I've used up the whole of the big bit, but I've hardly used any of the other ones, so that will now go in my stash. But I didn't just buy random things. But I am a sucker for something pretty if I see it. So yeah, drawers, labels, boxes. I need to reorganise my studio actually. It's a little bit chaotic. I need to have a big clear out, work out exactly what I've got again, and maybe buy some new boxes or some new shelving as a way to organise it a little bit better, because it's even though I know where everything is, it's not always easy to get to, and it's not always completely as organised as I'd like it to be. But that's something that will happen down the track. I hope that helped you, Jenna, and good luck with getting your collection together and launching your business. So Natalie D says, I'd love to hear the story of how and why you started your business. So I think I've kind of covered that with, sewing for myself and my friends, and then realising that that sewing and fashion was my passion. So Rajveer on YouTube says, where do you live and what's your favourite food? And then Jack Winstanley on YouTube says, when did you move to Oz and why? So I'll do the where I live and why I live here, and then I'll come back to my favourite food. So on New Year's Eve 2005 going into 2006, I met my husband in a pub in Portsmouth in England, where I'm from, and I think it was love at first sight. He is Australian. He was over in England for 2 years on a working holiday, and when his visa was up, one of us had to make a move, and I decided it was going to be me. I'd been over and met his family and visited Australia, and I loved it here, and yeah, I thought it was about time for a change. So I packed up my shop, packed up my sewing machine, packed up my life, and shipped it halfway around the world. And yeah, I've now been here for 13 years in Canberra. I got my citizenship just about a year and a half ago, so I'm now an Australian citizen, and I love it here. I absolutely love it here. I love the space. I'm originally from Portsmouth in the UK, which is quite a condensed city. It's on an island, and it's everyone's pretty jam-packed in there. So moving to Canberra, it's having the space here, having the countryside around us, having a big garden, having room to have a studio in my garden and still have a garage, having a driveway is a novelty still after 13 years after living in Portsmouth. So I love it here. It's a great place to raise a family too. And yeah, so I am in Canberra in Australia. Rajveer also asked me what my favourite food is. I like loads of food. I know. My favourite food is everything that I pick from my own garden. So one of the bonuses of living in Canberra is that we've got we're in suburbia, but we've got a really big backyard. And my husband over the last few years has been working really hard to make an amazing veggie garden for us. and our food production this year has gone up really high. So when we had dinner last night, we had a roast dinner last night, the potatoes, the carrots and the beans and the pumpkin were all from our garden. We've got fruit trees growing, we've got apples, apricots, lemons, limes and figs, which should all be producing by next year. We've got 10 chickens, so we've got fresh eggs, which are just amazing. We use the chicken poo to fertilise the veggie patch, so it's all organic, and the veggies from your own garden taste so good compared to what you get in a supermarket. So this summer we grew pumpkins, beans, peas, carrots, we've got herbs, we had beetroot, we had radishes, loads more. And then we've just put winter crops in now, so we've got beans and peas in again, we've got onions, we've got garlic, we've got so many potatoes growing. The sweet potatoes are almost ready, we've got leeks and turnips and parsnips, spring onions all in the ground at the minute. And yeah, it's our dream to one day move off grid and be as self-sufficient as we can somewhere, maybe somewhere outside of the city where we've got more space to grow even more veggies. So my favourite food is anything from my own garden, because I know that it's fresh, it's organic and it's really delicious. Alright, so I'm going to do one more question in this video and then I'll do the next one as a separate video. So ZC on YouTube says, what would you recommend as a starting point for someone who has sewn before but has never sewn a garment? Never sewn a garment but can sew. Probably just getting familiar with how two-dimensional pattern pieces go together to create three-dimensional clothes. So I'd start with something really simple, like a little A-line skirt, maybe with a couple of darts at the top, so you can get used to fitting, so using your measurements and using them on the pattern pieces to get the fit right. Maybe using fabrics that are quite easy to sew, like cottons or polycottons, so not something super slippery and difficult. And then you can gradually learn sort of new techniques that you can use. So learn how to if you do a skirt and learn how to put a zip in, then you know you've got the skills to put a zip in if you do a dress. Move from doing darts or panels on a skirt to doing the darts and panels on a dress, and then use your zip skills or learn a new zip skills. Start simple, just go and buy some commercial patterns, buy some cheap fabric and experiment and see what you can do. I bet you'll surprise yourself how quickly, if you can already actually use a sewing machine, that's half the battle, I think. So if you've already got those sewing skills, yeah, go and buy some patterns, buy some simple patterns. A lot of, in commercial pattern books, a lot of the times they'll mark things as easy. Yeah, so I'd say, yeah, start with a simple A-line skirt and then move on to maybe some different, slightly more complicated skirt patterns, because they're easy to, especially A-line skirts, really easy to fit because you only need your waist measurement and the length measurement to get them to fit right. And then once you've got the hang of that, you can move on to maybe doing a simple dress, maybe like a sort of tunic dress, like a 60s trapeze dress or something like that. And then you can gradually build your skills and start making things with more seams and more sort of fancy details on them as you learn. Excellent, so I'm going to leave it there for today because otherwise this is going to get really long. So I'm going to film part 3 now and keep going, but I will put it in a separate video. Yeah, head wrap tutorial up soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with the next video.